The 2020 matchup is underway, and we've got some polls from Politico showing that the top contender right now, I believe, is Bernie Sanders, which I like. They also mentioned Joe Biden, I don't like, and many people I also don't like. But let's talk about what's going to happen in 2020. Let's talk about the midterms. Let's talk about what Politico has to say. And my God, if you're watching this video, I am going to talk about my personal politics, which I tend to do often on this channel. So here's what I want to aim for, okay? I've got some articles pulled up that are heavily critical of Trump, okay? I want to make sure that we can have a real discussion and that you in the comments don't simply downvote my video simply because the title might be something you disagree with. I want you to actually engage with this and by all means present your arguments in the comment section so we can build a more robust, political economy in this country. Maybe that's my hope for YouTube. These ridiculous smears that come out about me and like Rogan and Rubin and other people is just absolute BS. Before I get into this, I'm going to make a quick comment about that alternative influence network thing. If you've seen it, they claim that YouTube drives people to the far right. I would counter that YouTube drives people away from the far right. Because if your argument is that Ben Shapiro leads you to Roaming Millennial, which leads you to Richard Spencer, I could argue the inverse, that if you're someone who watches Richard Spencer, you might then watch Roaming Millennial, and then you might then watch Ben Shapiro, who is Jewish. So the point is, it's a two-way street here, man. What I really hope to accomplish, I look at, there's spheres on YouTube, right? You've got Kyle Kalinske, the Young Turks, David Pakman. I think Kalinske and Pakman do a great job. The Young Turks I believe they do an okay job, but I think they get a lot wrong. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the Young Turks. I don't hate them or anything, but I know Cenk, FYI, for those that are interested, for those that, full disclosure. I also know David Pakman a little bit. We've met periodically. I don't know Kyle Kalinske, but I think Pakman does a pretty good job. I think he's a pretty straightforward fellow. But the point I'm trying to make is that these spheres are totally separate from each other. I'd love to see David Pakman engage more with other political YouTubers because we need balance in our political sphere. That smear thing that they put out, all it really says is there's an alternative world being built. They excluded a bunch of people, they draw false conclusions, but to me this just shows that they're worried, and that's why they lie. That's why they lie and make false insinuations, because there is an alternative space growing. And I mean, look at Politicon. Ben Shapiro's a mainstream guy, and now he's their roaming millennialist too. It's ridiculous what they're trying to assert here. But let's look at the polls. I don't want to ramble on too much about that subject because I could later. But the goal here is to highlight what's going to happen in 2020 and be cool, reasonable, calm people about our political landscape. I just want to make one more point on this. A lot of people give thumbs down on videos simply because they don't like the title. And that's your right to do. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. Everybody give me a thumbs down if you don't like me. I think you should be able to do that. It is actually moderately bad for the channel and the video. I just hope that those watching don't give me a thumbs down simply because they disagree with me. If you respect my willingness to engage with you, I ask that you give me a thumbs up on my videos and simply comment and insult me in the comments, right? I'm more than willing to honestly engage with all of you in debate as to why I agree with certain things and disagree with certain things. It's not super easy because YouTube is kind of one way. I know you can comment and interact, but for the most part, I talk. And if you watch my videos, you can't talk back. So, I think maybe some moderate discussions on left versus right politics live streams might be in order. I think I should probably do that. But I do hope that you guys appreciate that I'm willing to at least try my best to honestly engage with conservative positions of which I tend to disagree. So let's just go to the article because I've wasted too much of your time not talking about the article. The 2020 presidential election is still more than 800 days away. That's quite a bit. But a new Politico Morning Consult poll shows President Donald Trump will, with paltry levels of support when matched up with nearly a dozen would-be Democratic opponents. This is great, right? Okay. Again, the two best-known candidates, Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Bernie Sanders. Trump trails 12 percentage points and is mired in the low 30s. Biden leads Trump 43% to 31, and Sanders leads over the lead over the president is virtually the same, 44% to 32. I just want to add, I was wondering whether or not I should bring this up because a lot of people tell me, oh, I'm not a journalist, I'm an opinion guy, and I'm like, well, hold on, this channel that you're watching right now is my opinion editorial. I made a half-an-hour video talking about why I like most of Cortez's platform. I don't know if I trust Cortez. I trust Bernie Sanders. For real, I do. Not entirely. Nobody gets 100%. But I'm maybe now I should come out and talk about who I will vote for. And as many of you know, it probably would be Bernie Sanders. Absolutely. Not necessarily because I agree with all his politics. I think a lot of his policies are a little too far left for me, but I believe that Bernie Sanders has integrity. I don't think he's perfect. I know he's wealthy and has summer homes and all the things he's criticized for. I believe he claimed to be a socialist. He's not. He's a social democrat, meaning he believes in welfare policies and things of that nature. And I actually agree with a lot of them too. Don't get me wrong. I think corruption and exploitation of a welfare system is really, really bad and needs to be dealt with. And we need to implement systems to make sure people aren't abusing the system we've created to protect each other. But I do believe that we have a serious healthcare problem in this country. I don't know, maybe you don't agree with me or not. My healthcare basically covers nothing. And, I see story after story of things that I think should not exist in a country like the United States. When, there's a story that's making its rounds about a guy who couldn't afford insulin and ended up dying because of it. And to me, it sucks that he couldn't afford insulin. To me, it's terrible that, he had diabetes. This is life isn't fair. And sometimes these things happen to people. But I also feel like, dude, if I knew that this guy needed $50 to buy insulin, I'd run full speed to his house to make sure he got it, And so when I hear stories like this, I think there are a lot of innocent people that I am absolutely willing to support. However, I don't know if you're willing to support them, and I don't think you should have to if you disagree. And therein lies the conundrum. The idea of, liberty versus authoritarian systems, like mandating individuals have to pay more to their taxes for programs they don't agree with, is a huge challenge for me. So that's why I don't necessarily agree with universal healthcare. But I do believe we should have a public option. And I do believe it is wrong that people in our country are dying for some of these medical reasons when they could be solved if they simply had the means to do it, especially when, if I knew about it, I would do what I could to help them too. We need to provide some kind of protection to our fellow citizens to ensure a cohesive system. A lot of people talk about how there's a lot of people who criticize multiculturalism, and they say that it doesn't work because you need an overlying larger culture that encompasses these other cultures, because sometimes they disagree. Like some cultures say LGBTQIA, all that is wrong. Some say it's not. And how do they mesh? Well, one of the ways we can do that is through social programs. But here's my big concern: exploitation and corruption. I'm not confident a government can actually run these programs without burning money and wasting it and wasting our resources. So I'm like, you see why I'm like only center left and not far left? I'm not confident these things can be accomplished. I don't know how to do it, but I want them to exist. So anyway, when talking about Bernie Sanders, let me show the poll. They show Bernie Sanders to Trump. I guess I don't understand exactly how this poll works. Oh, okay, I see here. Trump versus Bernie Sanders. Trump would have 32 and Sanders would have 44. One of my biggest concerns with Sanders, as I've mentioned, is that he's weak. When the activists took the microphone from him, he backed away and bowed down, and that worries me in terms of foreign policy. And I'm conflicted because I feel like we really do need a strong person when it comes to foreign policy. And let me just say, a compliment to Barack Obama: you have to accept he was strong when it came to foreign policy. Nightmarishly strong. He killed American citizens, okay? So I can say, yes, Obama was strong, but goddamn, do I disagree with how strong he was. He was more strong, stronger, maybe strong isn't even the right word, maybe kind of maniacal. He killed, I think it was 4, I could be wrong, but he had a thing called the disposition matrix where he actually ordered the execution of American citizens. And then there was collateral damage where American citizens were killed. Trump has also, in a GI raid, I believe it was a commando raid in Yemen, resulted in the death of an American girl, a little girl like 8 years old. So I'm not huge on, America's foreign policy stuff. I don't like hearing the things that America does, and I tend to disagree with the entirety of it. Like bombing Syria, providing weapons to Saudi Arabia. I'm like, dude, can we not? Maybe we can't. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know enough about foreign policy, I guess, to weigh in on it. But all I can say is, if I had the choice, I'm going to ask they not do that. I'm concerned, however, with Bernie Sanders being too weak. I feel like he'd probably be a lot better on foreign policy than a lot of people, but DSA, Democrats, they have a foreign policy problem. They don't talk about it. They talk about domestic policy, and that's great. But if you really want to get me over that hump and say, you know what, I am going to go out and vote for somebody, because I tend not to, you've got to address all of the issues. When I look at Bernie Sanders' history, I believe that he has convictions. I believe that he has been honest for way more than anybody else. You can look at videos of Bernie Sanders from 20 years ago where he's espousing the same positions, and I'm like, this is a guy who really knows what he believes, and I agree with a lot of what he believes. I am concerned that a lot of his policies are a little too left, and he's wrong about a lot of things, but I also feel like I trust him more than most other politicians. I also want to point out Bernie Sanders opposed these trade agreements. He opposed TPP. He opposed, I believe he opposed NAFTA. But a lot of the people I talked to, at least, because I'm not as learned on these issues, but a lot of people I spoke with at Trump rallies told me they like Bernie because he doesn't like these free trade agreements that are damaging to the American economy and to the American worker. Bernie Sanders also said that the gun debate is a urban versus rural issue, and he's right, it is. So I got a ton of respect for how he views, I think he's a smart guy. I did meet him once in D.C. He's like, comes off like a regular dude. I'm just not sure the Democrats will do it. First of all, he's really old. I think he might be too old to be the president at this point. Look, honestly, Trump's really old too, and I'm surprised. And Hillary's really old. I'm going to say it. I think they're going to run Hillary Clinton. I do. Right now, I feel like they're going to do it. She's been really politically active. She's had op-eds published, and I'm really worried she does. They're gonna do it. Let's do this. I would vote for Bernie Sanders. And I wouldn't give him a 10 out of 10. I give him like a 55 to 60%. Meaning Bernie Sanders just gets me over that difficulty hump of being like, okay, I'll vote for somebody. Joe Biden, I would not vote for. Elizabeth Warren, absolutely would not vote for. Like 8 years ago, I was a bigger fan of Elizabeth Warren, but I really do not trust her at all. I don't know. Look, tell me why. I don't know. Like why people think that is. I don't know. But I view Bernie Sanders as way more trustworthy. Yes, I know there's a lot of criticisms about the house he bought and things like that. I'm not saying he has my undivided, like he doesn't get 100% trust. I'm just saying it's like 55 to 60. I like him more than I don't. And to me, I think that's really important. Cory Booker. I do like Cory Booker, but I just don't trust him. I trust him way more than Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden, though. So he's definitely in my maybe list. Andrew Cuomo gets a no from me. I don't know enough about him. Kamala Harris gets a hard no because she published that fake news about Kavanaugh, and I am not happy with it. Holder gets a no. Gillibrand, I kind of not so bad. But below Booker, she's like number 3. Wouldn't vote for her. Probably wouldn't vote for Booker. Would vote for Sanders. So far, Sanders is the only buddy who gets me over the hump, and that's probably why his polling is so high. To be honest, because people like me are like, yeah, I would. And the rest of the people, no, I wouldn't. The rest of the people, I'd just say, probably no to. So I'll put it this way. If anyone is going to be able to defeat Trump in 2020, in my opinion, it's Bernie Sanders. And the reason I feel that way is because even though I don't agree with him on everything, and I never will, I would vote for him. I would. And it's funny because I made a video about it last time and people called me a socialist and all that stuff. But what can I say? There's a fine line between socialism and capitalism. Right now in the United States, we have kind of a hybrid. Socialism is, so think about it this way. Complete socialism would mean all of your revenue goes to the government. Complete capitalism would mean all of your revenue, it stays with you. I actually believe we should be somewhere in the middle. I think Bernie Sanders is too left for me, but we've got to have someone, and I think he is the best in my opinion, although I do have concerns about where we go after Sanders. We'll see what happens. But in our system, we have a split where most of your money you keep, and I think on average it's like 35% goes to the government. So it's like 35% towards a socialist kind of idea where you pool your resources and it's controlled by the collective, and then majority to, so we actually, I'd imagine we lean a little bit to the right in terms of how our economy functions, meaning that the private individual controls most of their labor and the fruits of their labor. I like that. I like it a lot. I don't know if universal health care is what we need to do. I don't know how, whenever you increase taxes, you're asserting a kind of authority over people without their consent, and I'm not a big fan of that. But we do have a constitutional republic. We do have representatives who vote, and I don't think it's entirely unfair that these things happen. And lastly, the last thing I'll say is taxation is not theft. I made a video about it. I'd be more than willing to debate someone on like economic policy. I don't think I'm the smart. The last thing I'm going to add, I don't know everything. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I don't think I'm smarter than any of you. I only can react on what I've read and what I believe to be true, and I entirely accept the fact that I'm probably wrong about a ton of stuff, especially a lot of what I've just said. So if you're somebody who's made it this far in the video, now we're closing on 15 minutes, you have my utmost respect. I only request that you, in turn, provide the same to me, the willingness to hear me out, hear what I believe and why, and I fully accept your criticism, your insults, your attacks. By all means, load the comment section with derogatory comments and mock my appearance and whatever you want to do. I believe you have the right to do it. I just hope that we can create a space, especially with YouTube, I don't know if it's possible, where we can have more honest dialogue, where there can be people who are like Bernie Sanders supporters and voters who are willing to be like, I disagree, but let's talk about it. And that's one thing that YouTube has done a really good job of, in my opinion. Unfortunately, we get smeared for it. We get accused of being, reactionary and other nonsense. But here's Tim Pool's far-right Bernie Sanders supporting video where I explain my positions on things. I hope this was informative as to what I believe, and I hope you enjoyed hanging out. But stick around. I've got one more video coming up in just a couple minutes. Or actually, it's probably up now already.